and welcome back to the Advancing Healthcare Innovation Show. I'm your host, Michael Stamachinos. And if you're new to us, just really excited to have you here. Let me just sort of take a step back and tell you what we're about and what we're trying to do here. So we are a healthcare innovation company. We're focused on bringing stories of innovation within our space to life. And the aim is just highlighting real people that are actually really innovating within our space and giving them the platform to share their stories with our community and with the world. And if you haven't checked out any historical episodes, we've got an incredibly action-packed year. Make sure you check out some of the older ones and amazing new content for this year, new interviews. Very, very excited about it. So as part of our commitment to just keeping you updated with the latest advancements, whether it be solutions or things that people are doing within our space, we've got a really innovative leader today that's pushing the boundaries and shaking things up. And she's a very special guest, having spent more than 15 years working in healthcare. She knows a thing or two about leadership and what it takes to innovate, especially within a large enterprise. So please welcome Maura Buxton. She's the head of B2B Enterprise Strategy and Growth at CVS Health. And Laura really leads the way when it comes to B2B competitive strategy and growth. And she's got like an intellectual curiosity and a passion for innovation, and at the same token, an analytical mind that really makes her a driving force. And she's known for her ability to take the reins, to delegate, whether it's being a gang of one, corralling people, making things happen. It's not easy in terms of being able to do that within a large enterprise. So today, my hope is that we will kind of dig into her impressive career, her path, and she can share some highlights and also some of the learnings within that. So, Maura, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So, CVS Health, massive organization. Don't necessarily want to focus on them today, but I want to really focus more on your journey
Mhm.
and some of the things that you've seen across your tours of duty. Maybe we take a step back, and for those that really don't know a little bit of your story, would you mind maybe sharing a bit of your story, and then we can kind of dig into a number of different areas.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I have a pretty unconventional path. I started out in a lot of smaller startups, so I really carried that forward into all of my roles, even now at a major, Fortune 5 company. That tenacity, entrepreneurial mindset has really helped me well. I've been in healthcare for the past, God, 15, 16 years, thereabouts, and really love the space. My mother is a nurse practitioner. She had her own practice. She's retired, but that really instilled in me the thought of really wanting to be engaged in healthcare in some way. And I started out when I got into healthcare and realized this is my calling. This is where I want to be. I really want to be able to kind of be a force for good on the other side, right? Not on the provider side. I wanted to actually help people like my mother that were trying to wrangle insurance. Like, how do I deal with all these phone calls? How do I manage my life? And so I joined Tufts Health Plan, that now is Point 32 Health in Massachusetts, and
Yeah.
just spent a couple of years there, getting a sense of corporate strategy, product development, and from there launched into 10 years now at CVS Health. I've kind of gone from strength to strength and really love the enterprise and kind of what we're trying to do. I've had a variety of roles spanning sales, product development, just, connectivity, kind of being a super connector in a large organization I've found out is really valuable. And then also leading up a portfolio of $10 billion of client sets within the blues space to help support their growth. So it's one thing to help my company be successful. But when you think about the whole healthcare ecosystem, there's so much interconnectivity that I recognize that there was going to be value if we could arm our health plans with growth strategies in their segments. So, and I'm proud to call companies like Elevance and others my clients. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm really excited to talk to you, Michael, and love the work that you're doing too. So this has been a great treat for me.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So let's dig in a little bit more sort of about you. I mean, when you think about innovation and with some of the roles you mentioned earlier, and I love it when you mentioned working at a smaller stage startup? Like you just kind of have to be building bridges constantly. What
Mhm.
How has your view of innovation, if anything, what's changed about it? What's evolved about it over the course of your career, if anything?
I think that it's really critical to make sure there's 2 ways. One, it's not like it's easy to innovate in a smaller company because obviously, like, the task becomes inordinate because there's less people doing it, but it feels almost like getting that buy-in, right? Because you're rubbing shoulders with people constantly in a smaller environment when you're very, very focused. It is so much it's a different kind of mindset for innovation, I feel like. At a larger organization, in an enterprise such that I belong to, innovation can happen in so many areas. We have so many assets within the CVS Health enterprise that all of a sudden, something that is someone's big I innovation is someone else's little I, right? And you're kind of all competing for funds and attention of
Right.
executive leadership. So it's really critical. And the thing that I have tried to do is to make sure that there is understanding and just awareness across the organization of what shared success can look like when it comes to innovation. Taking someone's concept of little I, this isn't going to work for me. I'm fighting for CapEx dollars over here to, hey, let's put a pause on this. There's actually ways that we can have synergistic values across, and this is what that would look like, and bringing people along to that vision. And I'll be honest, it takes a lot longer in larger
Yeah.
organizations versus startups, where again, you kind of all feel that rallying cry together. So I would say that that's sort of what has changed for me personally in innovation is kind of thinking about it in different types of corporate structures and how you can actually um, be able to manage innovation and then take it through from ideation to actually implementation.
Oh, talk about the team when you're kind of bringing people along this journey. Even if if they're not necessarily direct reports, but it sounds like there's quite a bit of collaboration. Can you
Correct.
maybe talk about the dynamic of what that's like and how you're sort of pacing them along the way along this journey? Because you mentioned it does take time, and give us maybe um, any time frames or even examples to make that even more concrete.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I have found has been successful is being able to talk to people offline. Don't schedule a broad meeting and then sort of dictate terms, but
Yeah.
get people sidebar. It will take longer. It will take longer to have one-off conversations with people, but it is so critical. My job has been fairly remote for the past several years, so it's more incumbent on me to make sure that I'm using every tool in my toolkit to get the message across because I can't just hope for, water cooler banter to help carry that over the
Mm.
finish line, right? So having those sidebar discussions, knowing if someone could be a pocket veto before you have these larger scale meetings is critical.
Pocket
And when
veto?
yeah, like there have been instances in my past in where and other leaders too that I've worked with where they know that someone is coming to a broad meeting if they have not had prior socialization and are just sitting like this. Like, no, this is not going. I do not like this path.
Yeah.
You are asking me
Yeah.
to do things that are outside of my scope, or I disagree with that vision. And it's not even trying to get everybody to a yes. It's trying to get everybody to tell you what they care about.
Yeah. So being able to, in essence, getting to the truth. Y- y- I love that term, pocket veto. It's the first time I've heard it, so that's why it's happened to me quite a few times.
It's it happens to everybody. It's just you don't want it to happen in a big stage gate meeting. I will just say that it is uncomfortable
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, any examples that come to mind of this type of kind of preparation beforehand as you're doing this? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I would say that for those sessions where I work on socializing the concept, if it's something that's innovative that will be especially different for people to wrap their arms around, and you got to imagine in a major organization when everybody is used to doing things the same way forever and you're asking them to do something different or believe in something different, you have to come with so much data, so much background. And what I've found helpful is kind of laddering up the different people that you want to talk to based on kind of the information that you think that you'll get, because that story will continue to strengthen.
Right.
It almost, what I've tried to do is like work up to that person that could be a pocket veto and get people that are in my corner that I know are really excited about change, or even if they're not excited about it, they can see value. And then that helps tell the story. The narrative grows stronger. And then by the time that separate session comes up with someone that again would be, I wouldn't even say it's not all the time openly antagonistic of it, but if they have a lot of reservation, having all of those, different individuals that have helped tell the story, it also says to them that, hey, there's a lot of other people that all of a sudden have their, handprints all over this. It gets harder for them to say no to a growing collective, even though again, it's not being called out in a session. um, it just becomes something where you're saying, hey, I've talked to a lot of people. I want to talk to you now. This is what I'm hearing them say. What do you think? Right. And just
Yeah.
engaging in dialogue. And again, what I've tried to do is stay away from the mandating terms and make it a collaborative exercise, so that once you get to that stage gate, if you're trying to do a formal kickoff, which I've done before too, launch either a new clinical program, a solution. I brought a nationwide solution to market. You need to make sure that all of those things are buttoned up. And then the big thing too for our organization is, if it is CapEx intensive, you all obviously need to make sure that you have all of the data, everything else. So that's kind of an example of that
Yeah.
sort of journey that I take.
I love it how you framed it, which is, look, innovation is about collaboration. And sometimes the best collaboration is just asking for feedback. Hey, what
Mhm.
do you think of this? Let's let's prime the pump. Let's just have a discussion. And that can lead inadvertently, whether it be to creating this and gaining more momentum. Has there been a time in your career where you've taken that approach and it hasn't worked out, where it's just backfired?
I think, yeah, I mean, there were definitely some times where the pocket veto, the people that were a little bit more antagonistic to the process, it would have had bigger implications on them. So, one example in the past was, um, and I was sort of tasked with finding a way to help streamline a division, and trying to figure out, like, are there better ways that the team could be organized to support clients. And so that, because there was, I guess, a little bit more of a shining the light on that area in particular, it was
Yeah.
highly sensitive. And so as a result of that, and again, it was using that kind of like mantra of innovation, but because it came into practical application, changing the way that you do things, the whole concept of change management, I think I took for granted, and other leaders that were attached to the work as well, to how it would be received. And it was received as, it feels to me like you're trying to take away my resources and you're trying to tell me and my organization and my department how to function. No, I'm actually going to talk to leadership and figure out
Yeah.
my own path. And so things eventually progressed in a positive direction.
Yeah.
But that type of and it was a very specific use case, but it definitely does not always
Yeah.
work.
I mean, listen, it gives you a perspective for the future. There's always going to be some level
Exactly.
of learnings. And so
Mhm.
so going into sort of like, let's just say, in terms of focus and being a catalyst for change, what what do you think needs to happen outside of narrating the story and corralling people? What are some of those other important elements that you think need to be there to really get even more traction, to actually get to execution?
I think that getting executive endorsements and sponsorships in an organization is helpful. I mean, it's critical, right? So sometimes there is work that can be top down versus bottom up. Obviously, top down approach is super simple. You're just going through with a mandate and everybody, the marching orders are clear, right? Certainly when it's a bottom up perspective, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of more careful thought around how to ideate in a new space and then get executive sign off. So that's different. So when you're an agent of change in that bottoms up approach, I think it's even more instructive and important to make people feel part of the process. So, whiteboarding, I can't mention that enough of like how important it is to just get people on even a virtual whiteboard to think through things and get them to feel engaged in the process. Sometimes if you just even, and what I found is great is just asking for help from people. Just say, hey, I'm kind of stuck on this, even if you're not, right? Just because I think that there was some psychology study that I read years ago that people are more willing to try to help you if you ask for help, and then they'll feel committed to your success. And
Yes.
so I found that that's really held true. If you come to people with a sense of humility and saying, hey, I don't think that I know all the answers, but I know that there's a problem. I'd love for us to partner together on this. That also can really yield some really powerful things. And then establishing better sense of connectivity with people. They feel bought in, right? They feel like it's something that they helped build too. And that's important.
Especially for those that are tuning in that are working in a large enterprise that are maybe thinking, well, hey, I'm just one person. How do I innovate? This is
Mhm.
an amazing conversation to be tuning into because something as simple as ask for help. It might seem common sense, but I tell you, not many people actually take that approach, which is like asking for help. And I think good leaders, even when they actually maybe instinctively know the answer, they might not necessarily share that in a group, but they'll go in thinking, what other value can the group provide here? Let's let's see what
Exactly.
they do. And next thing you know, it might even change their initial perspective. They say, wow, I never actually even thought about that. But if you don't actually ask for help, there's just no way of being able to do that.
Mhm.
What are some other things? What like when have you found that asking for help has really sped up the process even more? Is there any examples that you can share with us without breaching any confidentiality? Obviously, we want to be very sensitive to that.
Yeah. I think just putting it into like I guess the way that it practically can pan out. When asking for help, and maybe as I kind of alluded to, and you also said, you might have a really good working thought of what you want, and you just love to hear a chorus of yes and people coming to that same agreement without having to spell it out. But I think that it's great, and you get even more traction, and it becomes a flywheel when you are able to be flexible. You can still be an agent of change, but if you love your baby, meaning you love your idea so much that you're unwilling to part with like one single thread of that, that makes you actually a bottleneck in the process. Because when you do ask for help, receive it. And don't just use it as a means to an end to foster dialogue and then yes people to death and then trot out your grand master plan that you had all
Yeah,
along, right? But be open to change. Be open
yeah.
to not knowing all of the answers. I mean, especially if you
Hmm.
happen to belong in a larger organization, and even if you don't, even if something is not your day job and it's someone else's,
That's
know
right.
that they're in their position for a reason, that they have a different perspective, that they have different lived experience that can actually help the process. And if you're open to it and you use a, instead of a no, but it's like yes and like bringing that
Yeah,
forward
yeah,
and then changing and pivoting. You have to continue to be flexible and it's not always a straight path. Sometimes it's a little bit meandering. But it's all part of the process and it's all part of like the give and take that I feel like really helps set up the best innovation.
yeah. Having you've been in this tour of duty for 10 years, you know what it takes to get ideas to actually germinate and to actually take stickiness. And it sounds like there's a level of letting go
You
and
have to.
kind of removing your pride out of it. Pride and ego tend to get in the way in a lot of things when it comes to like to leadership and organizational functioning at really high capacities.
Mhm.
And at the same token, people can sense whether you're just doing it to check the box.
Yeah.
Like, all right, hey, I'm just gonna get feedback. Hey, everyone, give me your feedback. All right, check the box, and you move quickly. But there's
Yeah.
a level of actually like humanizing that and like doing
Yeah.
it right sort of disarms people in a way.
I found that that's the case. Absolutely. Because if it feels perfunctory, people won't even give you feedback. I've had instances where I've seen other leaders in different projects that I was actually a stakeholder in. And so they were asking my feedback,
Yeah.
but I knew that they weren't really asking my feedback. It was definitely a check the box. So I provided some things, but I wasn't that committed to it. I have seen that play out really badly in some instances where people didn't provide real feedback. They just gave a perfunctory answer, but then hit it hard in a general session with a lot of other leaders where they said, actually, no, I don't think that this will work. And this is why. And then decide that that is the appropriate venue because they didn't feel like their needs were being met. They didn't feel like they were being heard. um I think that I want to go back to what you had just said about ego and pride and kind of and that whole concept when it comes to giving things up, right? um it is so hard. And I have also found that people sometimes when they're pocket vetoes or and I keep almost abusing that term. It's going to be like the theme of the show all of a sudden, and I don't want it to. But when when people come from a place sometimes and it feels like it's negative, I have found that there are some really powerful leaders that actually have opinions that feel negative, but it actually is just because they care. And it seems weird to say and think, but there is a level of passion there that I've tried to tap into sometimes just to see what that unravels, right? To just find out like, well, why are they so upset about this? And and you would not even believe sometimes what you can unlock. Like it sounds like I'm playing some kind of corporate therapist, but sometimes when there is that negativity that's being expressed or people are like stamping their feet about stuff, it is really coming because they care a lot.
Right. Right.
Um and
Versus
that
it
is
being like
so
a personal
powerful.
attack on you
It's
versus
and
it
it's
being a
not.
personal attack. It's
Yeah,
not, right? So just
it's
like
not.
put that, check that to the side. And it's like, all right, so if you
Correct.
check that to the side, did what they say actually really sound, feel, mean that? And
Exactly.
I guess the answer would be more than likely no, because it's like what they said is actually makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people are not the best at expressing themselves. I had um a a leader that I reported to years back, and I was told by people, don't work with that person. Don't. Don't don't if you want to go on that team, if you want to take that ride, because in this instance, it was a major initiative. It was a major acquisition that our company had, and it was going to be a wonderful opportunity. And I was told that this leader was really tough. I had a whole someone actually took me into a meeting room and just said, "This is what you're signing up for. Are you okay with that?" Because I was asked to be part of this 12-person team, and I met with the person, I talked to them, and then I realized like, oh my God, they just really care. And sometimes it just comes off in the wrong way, but like they care so much. And that individual, that leader became one of the best leaders I've ever had because they cared so much. There was actually this issue that happened with the team, and that person went out of their way to make sure that everybody on the team was kept safe. So again, not disclosing a lot, but like
Right.
they went out of their way, right, to do the right thing by people, and it was amazing. And I really felt a sense of like sadness for people that never got to experience that the leader in the way that I did, right? You would only see this like stonewall, getting really upset and agitated about work, but it was because it mattered and it mattered so deeply, and they wanted everybody else to care about it too, but it was just the way and the manner that it was done. Um felt antagonistic, rather than their intention, which is like passion and enthusiasm.
It,
So
well, maybe it has something to do with the fact that like you've invested in yourself and you know yourself really
yeah,
well, that
yeah,
maybe someone who might be at a different stage of their career wouldn't necessarily have the awareness that that's actually happening. But it just sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself to sort of realize that and say, hey, let's like give this a fair shake. And it turned out that that's someone that has made a big impression on you in your career.
Huge,
Let's
huge.
let's maybe shift gears a little bit because I want to
Yeah.
focus on like the future. And
Mhm.
what has your focus? What are you like super excited about? And then on the flip side of that, like what has you concerned?
Um, what has me excited? So within my space, within healthcare broadly, obviously there's the advent of AI. I mean, it has everybody talking in every different sort of dimension. There's so much incredible work that has yet to be tapped into to look at how that can help from a clinical side, obviously being able to get to diagnostics even faster than before, just having access to reams of information that a single provider would never be able to have in their head at any point in time to be able to make the appropriate diagnosis, and then to kind of pressure test what the appropriate response would be. I think that that's incredible. um, there's, and again, that's just like one part of it, a small part of like how AI and broader innovation is going to help the whole area. I think from my specific vantage point within my company, there's, and the broader sort of pharma space, biosimilars are massive, and as well as gene therapy. There's just so much that has yet to be tapped into fully, and it's feels like we're on the starting lines for a lot
Yeah.
of new advances um, in drugs, that has me really excited. I think that this is an incredible time to be attached to the space. I see so many different pharma companies that are coming up with like new and innovative gene therapy solutions that just has me fascinated, right? You have drugs that can help, just 12 patients maybe that, live in the entire world. But my God, that's the difference between how do you put a price on a human being? If it
Right.
was your loved one or mine, what wouldn't you pay for that type of therapy? And I just am so excited about the fact that there are companies that are willing to invest, companies that are willing to explore that, because I want there to be broader health equity, and I want there to be that movement and shift over time, to make sure that everybody can be healthy, and that's where we're focused.
And then on the flip side, in terms of areas of concern, I mean, look, because
Mhm.
you look at things from a strategic lens,
Mhm.
although you do get granular and you have the
Yep.
ability to execute, right?
Mhm.
Because a plan that's not executed, like
Of course.
might as
Yeah.
well just not
Mhm.
do it. Um, what concerns you in terms of things happening in the market, external forces, but also things that you're seeing, potentially internally? Again, to the degree that you're able to answer this would be super helpful.
Yeah, of course. I think that major market factors that have me concerned or just, think about is just, how can all of the different parties in the healthcare landscape, specifically in the US, work together in a more collaborative fashion, for the end goal of, patient healthcare, obviously driving down costs. That continues to be a friction point for everybody because there's all of these different competing actors in the space. And so because there are these, you have to think about like what the providers care about. It's funny. I think sometimes about my mother calling me up and just being like, I need you to fix this problem that I'm having with CVS. And I'm like, well, I am not the face of my company. Um, and so you have all of these different people that are attached to their version, their vertical, their situation, right? And how do all of the pieces sort of like tick and tie? It is funny because I've tried to explain like my company's position or like what insurance does or what the pharmacy does to my mom too many times. She's retired now. We don't have those conversations anymore,
Yeah, yeah.
thankfully. But it is hard, right? Because I'm very blessed in the fact that I have a very rich understanding of the broader tapestry of healthcare. I wouldn't say that I have like the depth of experience as other folks that is their day to day. Like for example, my mom, who's a nurse, who's on the front
Hmm.
lines. But um, having some type of like an awareness and a way to get to like shared goals, I think is really critical. And making it again a path forward is going to be really helpful as we look to the future. Like that has always been a concern, I think, of everybody that's in the healthcare space, right? As just
Mm,
how it feels like there's these like sources of agitation with providers going to insurance companies and trying to look for better placement, and or just refusing to be in network because of contract demands, contract disputes. Nurses launching a a strike because of working conditions at the hospital. Like it just runs down the chain, right?
yeah.
So I think that that's tough. I would love to be part of the answer to the extent that I can, though. I think that that's really, really critical for all of us to get to that shared understanding. To get to, I don't know, maybe like the thing that we were talking about before, which is like innovation, like everybody together talking, it'd be beautiful listening. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, let's think about this way because you have so much connectivity throughout the
Yeah.
organization, by design, but also like how you're wired. You're wired to be a
Yes.
connector and being a bridge builder.
Yep.
Who do you view as your customer? Like, who's your customer? Like, and that could be
Gosh.
taken figuratively and literally.
Yeah. I think that's a good question. I would say that for different types of projects, I obviously have different customers. Um, I would say that I'm always trying to help our patients, people that are just gonna trying to get access to care, right? And trying
Yeah,
to get it because their lives should not be held up on trying to understand benefits or this, that, and the other thing. Like it's just, you would like it to be as streamlined as possible for people that this is not their day job, like it's my day job or other people's
yeah,
day job.
yeah.
So I think that that's like an ultimate customer. And then obviously, the clients I serve. So some of my larger clients that I serve, and again, their end clients are also the patients too. So it's helpful. So I mean, I always try to have that eye towards patient, because that's where really all care delivery is centered around.
And when it comes to like alignment, with the end customer, like you talked about with some of your clients,
Mhm.
wh- where where does that come into play? Is that always like a center point? And how often do you, if it's not, how often do you kind of go back to true north and say like, hey, why are we here? Like, to talk to me about that relationship management because that seems to be like there's multiple layers, multiple stakeholders. There's a lot of levels of sensitivity. So I'm just sort of curious about that.
Yeah, I think true north is always easy to get to when you think about the patient. So I would say that it's pretty easy to just continue to orient around that. I would say that would be the case of anybody in any industry. Is like, who are you serving at the end of the day? And periodically, whatever you're doing, just put a pause and say, is this meeting true north? Right? Is all of the things that I'm trying to do, is it all laddering up to that one objective? And if it's not, then do we have to scrap this? Do we have to decide like actually this isn't going to meet our goals? So,
Yeah. So why don't we take a step back and just how can people follow your work? How can like do a little commercial about yourself and where people
oh, thank
can
you.
follow what you're doing and just obviously it's your episode, so we want to make sure that we're doing that.
Thank you. On LinkedIn, Maura Buxton, Maura, Buxton. Love to connect, like I mentioned. And I'm going to Vive. Is it Vive or Vive? I need to know
I,
this.
I,
I'm
I
looking to you,
call it
Michael. You have to help me.
I call it Vibe, but some
Okay,
people
then it's
call it
Vive.
Vivas. I mean, I call it
Okay.
Vibe, but that's just the way that I pronunciate it. But yeah,
Yeah,
if there's other,
Vive,
yeah.
in February, excited about that. And yeah, but definitely LinkedIn as a first source, and really happy to connect there, and chat more at length about healthcare, at length about anything. And really appreciate your time today too, Michael. Thank you
Yeah,
so
of
much.
course. And then just one last question is just like if someone needed to take action on one thing, if you had one thing that you wanted someone to take from this conversation and actually implement it, because right, I mean, ideas make you feel good, but action
Yeah,
really gets stuff done. What would it be that you'd want people to take from this to take action on?
I think that the biggest thing is just, make sure that you're listening. Um, make sure that you understand what people care about, and how you can help them be heard. I think that that I think that that's it. It sounds so easy and it's really not.
It's
It's such a
really
practice
simple.
thing.
It's really simple, right? It's really simple. It's just there's so much stuff that gets in the way of it, and
Yes. And it can
practical
take more
sound advice.
time. It can take more time, but honestly, it will always be worth it, because even if you just establish better connections with people and relationships, you'd be surprised on how those relationships can deepen over time if you set things up the right way and just hear people out and understand what makes them tick, what drives them, what motivates them, and how you can just be a force for good and help. You'd be willing to see I mean, you'd be shocked at how much they'd be willing to help you back.
Well, we call that the law of reciprocity, right? Help someone, and
That's right.
good natured, it comes back, it reaps benefits. So, for those that have tuned in, if you found this conversation to be helpful for you, number one, would you mind subscribing and liking it and engaging with it and sharing it and even just commenting to us like, hey, what did you like about it? What do you plan on actually taking away from this? And what do you plan on executing? Because you can't just have a community of people that just listen. You got to have a community of people that listen and do. So for those, stay tuned. Looking forward to our next conversation, Maura. Always welcome to come back on the show and share some more of your learnings. So until next time,
Thank you so
see you soon.
much.